Hello, everybody, and welcome to the newest edition of Synced Movies and Television with Matty and Stephen. Of course, I'm Stephen, as always, and to my left here we got my boy,
Matty.
And we just got done watching Halloween Ends. How does it end, you might ask? Well, we're going to tell you, maybe not specifically, but we'll give you a little review here. Halloween Ends, all right. So we're going to start. We're going to take out general thoughts, and that's just going to be the hot take. They're going to merge, so they're kind of the same thing. So in the hot take, we're going to tell you what we think, knee-jerk reaction, hot take reaction, then let you know if we recommend it, and then we'll move on to a deeper discussion with our little categories that we break down. Sound good?
Sounds great.
This movie was directed by David Gordon Green, written by a bunch of people with Danny McBride and David Gordon Green. Who else am I missing here? We got Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, as Laurie Strode, Andi Matichak as Allison, James Jude Courtney as The Shape, or Mike Myers for you freaking noobs, and Rohan Campbell as Corey. And then we got Will Patton back as Frank, and a bunch of other people in this movie. Go watch it if you're that curious about those people. But here we go, hot take. I just want to say this will be interesting too, because me and Maddie haven't really talked about this at all yet. Mm-hmm. What I think is I really liked it. I thought it was a pretty solid follow-up to the last few. I've enjoyed this trilogy. I'm not sure what I've missed or how stupid I actually am based on these like Metacritic scores and Rotten Tomatoes scores or whatever, but I really enjoyed it. I thought they did an interesting job of telling somewhat of a new tale while still working itself through the baggage of the old story. And I thought the filmmaking was really well crafted from DGG and Danny McBride. I think they brought their A game, and I don't know. I wonder if I'm going to feel stupid after saying that, but I think it's definitely worth the watch, and I think it's a solid follow-up to the first two. Maddie, what's your hot take?
Ooh, you wonder what I'm going to say, aren't you? I've seen it twice now. And I was really on the fence about it.
All right.
After my first watch, and me and the roomies watched it together, we were really stoked. I really enjoyed Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. I thought what David Gordon Green was bringing to the table was great. And I didn't really know what to expect from this one. It is a 4-year time jump, and that's weird. Like what has been going on for 4 years. Where's everyone at? But overall, watching it a second time, I did enjoy it more, but I get why everyone's on the fence about it. And the thing I like about this Halloween is DGG and team and etc. and producers, Blumhouse, who all involved, they took a big swing with this one. They decided to do something that has only been hinted at in other Michael Myers Halloween sequels, where someone else to take on the mantle possibly, or transference of evil powers. And, I love that they took that full swing. And I think that's why I like this movie. I mean, this could change in years to come. I could totally side with people who hated it. But at this point, watching as many horror films as I do, I like a big swing. It's something different. It's something I haven't necessarily seen on the screen before. And I'll tell this to the haters real quick who wanted a little more from old Michael Myers. He has the same kill count as Halloween OG, and he has roughly the same screen time as he does in Halloween OG by John Carpenter. So it's a very interesting parallel between an ending film and the beginning. To me, I think it's a good way to end it, and I understand people wanted more, but I don't know really what you can do at this point. If it was either going to end with kills or it's going to end with ends. So whichever one you want to finish this trilogy, you could start with OG Halloween and go to Halloween and then Halloween Kills and just end it there if you want, make up your own ending, or you can get a 4-film saga, which I'm going with 4-film saga, baby.
I was just going to say, but anyway, that's the hot take. If you, do you recommend this movie, Maddie?
I do. I think if you're a fan of horror and slashers, I think it's worth a watch. I think if you're a fan of the original Halloween and you follow this trilogy, you got to finish it.
Yeah, I also recommend it. In terms of just the filmmaking chops that we have here, it's totally satisfactory in my book. I loved watching this movie. I really enjoyed it. I love the atmosphere that they're able to get out of their scenery and their lighting and cinematography, as well as the tone and the mood that they set. I thought, for a movie that is playing up the contemptuous nature of the community, I felt that they did a good job of making that feel natural with the people involved, the people who hated Corey, the kid who accidentally killed Jeremy at the beginning, and along with the Strode family and how they've become pariahs of their community. I felt like all that felt really very natural in a very well directed and well acted way. And it builds the sympathy with all the characters involved here, even I would say a little bit to Michael Myers himself. But I love that we decided to focus on Corey here and see his descent into evil and how that all played out. I like how there was minor supernatural elements with Mike Myers, maybe some psychic kind of thing going on. And I absolutely love that they used the font from Halloween 3 at the beginning of the movie. So
Yeah.
how do you feel about execution, storytelling, directing, all that good stuff?
At the core of this is a movie about Haddonfield and what Michael Myers does to a town. Yes, it's a Laurie Strode story about her family, but like you, I think they did a great job, and I think that's what David Gordon Green in most of the movies I've seen, he makes these kind of, for the most part, these films that he gets the town they're in and everyone becomes a character, and he's really good about, to me, putting you in this universe, which I think the first one did too. I think John Carpenter's great at getting you super involved, even in his like terrible movies. You kind of care what's going on. Ghost of Mars is a terrible movie, but you kind of want to see what happens, right? He gets you in there, and I feel like David Gordon Green and him are kind of equals on that. I thought the storytelling was good. I liked following Corey. I mean, it's one of those things that I think we constantly have this conversation, or maybe I bring up most of the time, is where, things are happening in a story and people go, well, what's Michael, spoiler alert, I'm just going to say it, what's Michael doing in the sewers for 4 years? Like, how does he eat? And people ask these questions, and I'm like, I feel like Loomis sums it up best. Like, he's evil incarnate. He doesn't need to
Mhm.
eat. Who cares? He's not fed the same way we are. And I
Yeah.
think you have to go into films, horror movies. I mean, unless it's like something like Heat, where it's like everything makes sense because it's a real
Right.
world story. But this is a supernatural horror movie. At the heart of
Yeah.
it, it's you have this killer who can take out an entire team that's beating the crap out of him because he feels their fear, and that's what makes him stronger. So I think a lot of the times the way film, I guess film goers now go into movies because we've had these realistic comic book movies. I mean, quote unquote, I guess, as much as a man can fly around in a bat suit and it be like real.
Hmm.
But I feel like there's all this criticism on like, oh, this could never happen. Michael could never live in a sewer for 4 years and not eat anything, or blah blah blah. Like, who cares? Like, no, I don't care about any of that. I want to see how the story goes. But I thought Corey was a cool addition. And like I said, I love the big swing here. Like, here's a new character we haven't met before. We want to know
Hmm.
what Laurie's up to. We want to know what Allison's up to, and we get to focus on Corey for the opening of the movie. And I was like, oh, so it's like Halloween and Michael's back, but that's not how that goes. It's This movie's about fear and how fear can capture a town and change it. And
Yeah.
I love Laurie's arc in this, that she's like, I refuse to be the person I was in the first two films, which is great. We've seen
Right.
that. We've seen how crazy she can be and how off the wall she can be and how much she cannot be a family person and not a grandmother. I love that she was like, I bought a house. I'm doing this. I'm writing my memoirs and all this stuff about Michael Myers so I can tell my real story, and how I got through it basically. Because, maybe she thinks Michael's gone. Like, this was the end. I mean, we all
Right.
know that Laurie Strode knows that Michael's still there somewhere, and there's always a chance because
Evil
she's,
lives, baby.
you know, yeah.
Evil
So,
lives.
but I love that. I think my only beef with it is I think Allison gets sidelined for Corey and becomes a love interest, which to me is like, I felt like she was really strong through two films, and that's
Hmm.
probably one of. I mean, I'm sure there are other negatives or things I wish would have happened in this movie, but I don't feel like until the end she doesn't like really show up to help. She's just kind of like
Hmm.
a love struck person, and I didn't really care for her character in this, but I don't know if they just didn't know what to do with her and they couldn't really kill her off because it's like, what, we're going to give Laurie no one to live for? Because at this point, she
Yeah.
would have just reverted back to being crazy old grandma. Um, but yeah,
Yeah. There
besides
were.
that, yeah, I thought the execution and storytelling was great, and I think David Gordon Green is a master at weaving in all these characters from the band geeks who are the bullies, which I think is hilarious because I thought they were football players at first, but they have like
Well, they seem
drumsticks
to
and they
be
have
like
on.
a. They were like a mix of like the groups you'd find in high school or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, like you see the guy with the football jacket on, but under it he has on his like his
Right.
band gear, which is I don't know if you've ever been in a band, but we're not bullies. We're like the
Yeah.
nerdiest people on the planet. So I thought
Which
that was
also,
hilarious.
which lends to the idea that evil can be anywhere, right?
Yeah,
Even in band.
that's true. We're all terrible people.
Are you in band?
I was in band, not now.
So was I.
I'm an old man
And I
now. I don't go to
am.
school.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I play trombone for those who want to know.
All
Four
right.
years of high
A
school.
boner.
After that, I started playing guitar. I like long walks on the
um,
beach. I like watching horror movies. Oh, wait.
Yeah, he do. Yeah, he do. Yeah, I just, I just wanted to speak to a couple of things that you had mentioned about like how fear changed the town, and in a
Hmm.
way, I felt like a lot of the movie played out like this anthology episode. I think the way some of the original, the third one was supposed
Yeah,
to be part of this, like it was supposed to be a Halloween anthology films,
yeah.
and it was kind of like two movies in one. I guess I could see maybe for some people that being like kind of confusing, but I kind of liked that we were focusing more on Corey. And you're right, I think about Allison. I didn't think about that much, but I also was kind of thinking with her that there was a lot of this notion of like kind of letting go and letting things
Hmm.
be, and like that whole scene where she's like, if I want to be mad, let me be mad, and she's like, it's okay, you can be mad. And I feel like
Yeah.
Allison was just kind of like, fuck it, I'm sick of everything being so fucked up. I just want to hang out with a boy who's
Hmm.
who's I can
As fucked
relate
up.
to,
Yeah.
as fucked up, yeah, who I can relate to, but just I love how twisted it got. I mean, it's a horror movie, and then I like I don't know. I guess maybe they're running out of ideas for Michael himself, but the sewers didn't bother me. You could survive in a sewer. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I
just
like
hear it from me. No, I'm just kidding.
for storytelling, just like one thing that I thought was going to happen. I thought
Hmm.
Corey was going to become the new Michael Myers because he's the
Yeah.
shape, right? That's how he's building every movie. He is the shape. I mean, I don't know if all the sequels, someone might call him Michael Myers in it, but
Hmm.
I like the idea that there would be a new shape, someone who had more of a backstory than Michael, but then just killing his babysitter. I thought it was a cool idea that he accidentally killed someone in a town, and mob
Yeah.
mentality turned him into like the new Michael
Hmm.
Myers or something, and that's how they would continue this trilogy, or like to make a new film, it would be Corey. And I thought that was an interesting idea, but ultimately he does take on the moniker, which I would thought was pretty cool, like that little
Yeah.
tussle in the sewer, and he basically bests Michael. Michael's not at 100% here, people. He's at
Yeah. He's
like
still
a
healing up.
good 30-40% most of the movie. I
Yeah.
mean, he's
I love.
he's
I
older.
love.
He's taken a lot of damage over the last two films.
Yeah, I love how he had that kind of like orgasmic recharge there for a
Dude,
second
I
after
love
the
it.
first stab, and I was like, "That's
Oh
cool!"
yeah,
Like he fucking
yeah,
just feeds off of the murder and the mayhem and the fear, and
yeah.
then one thing I just love is like near the end that whole idea of how like evil never dies; it just changes shape. Like boom,
Hmm.
you just fucking made 4 or 5 more movies in my head.
Yeah. I'm
So
yeah. I like honestly, I thought it was overall. I love that. My favorite part is the final fight, which I know like my roomies had an issue with. They didn't think it was grandiose enough. They didn't think it was big enough. I love the intimacy of it. It reminded me of the
mhm.
first fight, and I think this is a full circle kind of thing. So it has to be something that's a little more intimate in Laurie's house, in close quarters, like
Yeah,
him on the street getting beat up and killed by the town would have been a cool ending. I agree. If they would have like put him in the meat grinder after that, I've been like, oh shit, David Gordon Green went there, and I would have loved it. But I also
yeah,
love this because you get the intimacy of that fight, how Lori has learned so much through her years and trained, and she knows how to trap Michael and like pin him. I loved it. I loved everything she said. And I love
same.
that like it was always like she stabs him like in this kind of region. So it's like
Yeah,
getting into the lungs. That's gonna kill him. She slits his throat, which every time you watch a horror movie with someone who it's like, oh my god, why didn't they just like shoot him in the head? This is that classic moment where they just go stab, slit,
yeah.
throat slit. Oh wait,
It
he can still
reminded me
grab
of
her, and then they put him in a meat grinder, and I was like,
yeah,
yes. To me, as a
yeah,
horror fan, for everyone who complains, because the killer's always got to come back, and that's what you have to be used to. I love that they were like, "This is our Michael Myers gone,"
yeah.
from John Carpenter's and what comes next, and whatever
When
iteration that
she
might be.
Yeah, when
Loved it.
she did that, when she did that, it reminded me of Bill the Butcher from Gangs in New York. That's a kill. That's a kill. That's a
Yeah.
kill. I'm like, she's doing her homework, and I guarantee you,
Yeah.
she slaughtered a pig out there in that when she was living off the grid.
Yeah,
I
for
mean, Laurie
sure.
Strode. Come on. With that being said, let's jump into characters here.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Laurie's been through a lot. She went from being the first final girl, just a high school girl trying to live her life, have her dreams, you know, to this long-standing legacy and this like rivalry between her and Michael Myers. I almost was thinking like, yeah, like maybe if she would have been, if she, probably a lot of people think this, but if she would have been killed by Michael Myers a long time ago, and he got taken out by some authorities or somebody else, would it continue to go on? That's kind of a stupid question now. Of course it would.
Yeah.
but
Well,
she's such a great hero for the ages, for cinema, and she's continuing to press forward. And I love the evolution of her character in this one as she's trying to settle into being a grandma and have like a normal kind of life, which is how all good movies like this
yeah.
start. And she was really endearing to me. I love how anytime she was being protective, it wasn't like your typical. I mean, it was it was resembling when a parent is like being lectury or naggy or whatever, but with
Mhm.
her past and also within the last few movies, the training that she's put herself through, that there's such severity behind her will to protect and why. And then that just kind of builds those tensions. So I love that, again, Corey, I thought he was awesome as a central focus and kind of telling his story and how it just seemed like I was just like, man, this guy just can't catch a break like at every
Yeah.
turn. But then once he went with the madness and the chaos that surrounded him, once he accepted it and went along with it, he had like this kind of sense of his own freedom now. And I really was like, that is pretty interesting. It wasn't outright, but the way they lined those pieces up, like that's what I was thinking about. I also loved Allison. I thought she's great, but yeah, we could have used a little bit more of her integrally played in. Or I
Mhm.
didn't mind that she had him and her were like a love interest. I thought that was kind of cool because it was like this dual life that he was living, and everything she's been through. It's just like, oh my god, nothing good could happen for these people.
Yeah.
Um, and it was great. I love the sweet sheriff guy. I like that he's still alive and that
Mhm.
him and Lori are maybe getting some time.
Yeah.
And the shape himself, he always brings it. I think, for as much as we did see him, I guess it wasn't quite as much. I mean, I'm always looking for peeking into little moments where you could get a little bit more out of Michael Myers, but he is just evil incarnate, I guess. How about yourself?
I thought the characters and performances were awesome. Like, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis is great. I think anytime I watch her in anything, she's always good. Like Everything Everywhere All at Once was just great. She's great in it. And,
I gotta watch
here I
that.
think she's the same. I love her as a foul mouthed grandma. I wish my grandma was a little foul mouthed from time to times when she burns the pie at the beginning and she's like, oh, fuck, fuck, fuck. It's just, it's
Hmm.
great because she still has that like hard edge to her because of like what she's been through,
Right.
but she's trying to be this grandma that people like see as what your grandma should be, like baking a pumpkin pie. And Allison's like, you should have just brought one at the store, and she's like, I didn't want to do that, stuff like
Yeah.
that. It's just reminded me of my grandma when she's like, she's getting older now and she can't bake or cook as much, and she's always like, but there are some things she just has to do, she can't buy it. And I love that moment. It just reminded me of like family and stuff. And I think that's, what David Gordon Green does also so well in this is like the family dynamics between Corey's family
Hmm.
and like the guy that she's like dating and stuff, and how he seems to be kind of a positive dude, but his mom is just so controlling after the events that take place at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
And I thought Corey was great. I don't know where this kid has been, but geez, I mean, he carried this movie for me. Him and Jamie Lee brought it down. James Jude Courtney is the shape. I think is probably one of my favorite shapes. He's menacing. He's tall. He's exactly what you want from Michael Myers. Um, yeah, I mean, I can't really think of anything that I was like, oh, that's pretty terrible. I mean, the only thing I can say is, I guess Lindsay Wallace, I would have liked to have seen a little more since she's a OG surviving member of the first Halloween movie. And I also feel
Hmm.
like they're like, oh yeah, she's a bartender now, and it's like, I mean, I guess
Okay,
it's not
right,
her
yeah.
story, and I get that, but it's just like, give me a little something else, like,
Maybe
let
she'll
me see her
die in
with
the
a dude
next
on
one.
her side or a lady, whatever she's into.
Sure.
And like I said before, I did think Allison was like, I thought she was great through two films, and I've seen her in other flicks. This movie on Shudder called The Sun, which is pretty good. If you guys need something spooky to watch this spooky season, she's great in that. And I was kind of let down that I didn't get a little more from her. Besides, in my opinion, it just feels like you said, I agree that she's kind of done with it and doesn't want anything to do with this. But she is the next final girl, right? Like, if
Yeah.
Laurie Strode is handing that baton, it's her. And I guess I would have liked to see a little more. I mean, she does get a moment at the end, but it's not like a big moment that I think she got in like Halloween and Halloween Kills. And I think that let
Hmm.
me down a little bit because I did like watching her and seeing her as like the next generation of Final Girl in this series. Like, who knows if she'll even show up again in a Halloween movie? But in the
Right.
canon that is the Halloween saga, I thought she was great, and I would have liked to have seen her do a little more throughout the film. Um, but yeah, I thought Will Patton back. I thought he was great. He's not in it a lot. I think he played. I think since we know he's probably retired from being a sheriff, it makes sense that he doesn't
Hmm.
have a lot of screen time except to be there and be like, "Hey, I've always liked you," and they have that conversation in the hospital. And I love that
Yeah.
it end caps with them going to see cherry blossoms, which is a thing that he mentions in the movie. And
Yeah.
it's nice that, and at the end of it, I'm glad that Lori has a little dude on the side and can finally settle down because we all know that Michael got ground up in a meat grinder. And that is, that's all you kind of want. And yeah, I thought the performance and characters were
I
great.
loved, by the way, I loved the scene in the grocery store where they kind of reconnect. It
Yeah.
was just so natural and it had that kind of nervousness that, like
Oh,
younger
yeah.
people might, or anybody, I think,
Yeah.
especially if you're interacting with somebody who you have feelings for, you really like, or you're kind of,
Mhm.
there's a moment happening, but there's also, the cashier standing right next to you. It just felt
When,
so natural. And you could see kind of his face was a little red and
yeah.
just this, it was so well acted. It was so well directed and presented. I just loved that moment in particular.
Yeah, I like the scene where she goes, and I like your face, or something along those lines. And he's like,
Yeah,
but I like your face. I like to see your face. Like, it's
exactly.
so
Yeah.
good. I bet a lot of it was ad lib because we all know that DGG loves to just be like,
Sure,
hey, this
sure.
is an improv scene. Let's do it.
I think that, and also just like speaking to that, I think again there was a real natural kind of feeling. It's like
Mhm.
just because we're not being titillated each and every moment with a kill or a laugh or whatever, it's like it was so satisfying and human. All
Mhm.
these interactions, because like even the mother, you could be like, oh my god, nobody's mom is like that crazy, but there probably
Mhm.
somebody is, but it also just it just felt real. It felt like very natural. So the comedic beats, I think, in this one stayed within the confines of their world and their
Mhm.
perceptions of those moments, rather than reaching far out into the audience to be like, "Fucking laugh now."
Yeah, yeah.
So I
No, I
think
agree.
it. And you mentioned something I wanted to talk about, the meat grinder thing, which I guess
Ooh,
is like more like a car chopper or wood chipper, maybe. But that was very satisfying. And, like I'm not a violent
looked great.
person, nor do I love horror movies and I love good gags. And it was just like, honestly, a lot of the kills and stunts in this movie I was very happy with. The girl, I love when there's a character who is kind of on the fence whether or not they should help, or you can tell there's an inkling of good in them, like the curly haired
Mhm.
girl out of the little friend groups of the band kids.
Yeah,
And she gets plowed by the truck and then later gets
yeah.
her head smashed in, and it's just like something, again, it's storytelling. It's like they got my emotions kind of wrapped up in her just a little bit with these subtle little film language cues, I'll
Mhm.
say. And I was reading it and eating it up, and it just makes for just a very satisfying drama, I guess, is what I
Yeah.
was kind of getting at. But that meat chipper thing, wood chipper, whatever, just like seeing this kind of final moment with Michael Myers, but having this concept of evil takes different shapes, like, I mean,
Yeah.
I was satisfied. And again, I like a lot of the kills. I thought they were good. One of my favorite ones before I pass it on to you was the whole stabbing the girl in the painting, and then like she
Yeah.
is left there, and the way he lets go of the knife is like, you know, it looks good.
It's
And I
called
was
art, baby.
like, yeah, I thought it was great. clapped a few times through this movie just because of little moments like that. And even the way that it wrapped up in that line, evil takes shape.
Yeah.
F the haters, bro.
My favorite gag is the DJ and the tongue on the record spinning.
Oh.
And I will say, I love that. And I know it's over the top, but I love that, like, when Corey takes on the mask, his kills are different from Michael Myers. And I really like that he's more over the top. Like, another one of my favorite kills is the fucking blowtorch to the fucking face. Like, the way that looked, like, close to the camera was so good. Like, you saw just enough to be like, that would hurt so bad. And, like, the girl screaming in the background as she's watching this before she gets her head stomped. I just loved how, like, not to say that Michael Myers isn't brutal, but he's brutal in a different way. This is like Corey he's taking it out on people, and he has trauma through these people, and he's taking it out differently. Like, each one of these kills is personal, where for Michael, it's just he's murdering because he's evil incarnate, and
Right.
I love how brutal his kills are. Like, going back to Halloween Kills, the firefighter scene I thought was epic, and just like, oh my God, like, that movie starts and you know why it's called Halloween Kills, and that's great. And you follow that movie all the way through, which is, people don't like that one either, but I loved it. I was trying, and I love I love the trapping of Michael, her hammering the knife into his hand, and him just like groaning and stuff. It's just, there was a lot of brutalness to it, and I loved it. I loved Corey had different kills and killed differently. I love that scene where they go in the doctor's house, because it's kind of a cringy scene, like an old dude and a young girl, and like you're just like, I don't like these people, but you don't really want them to die because they're just being human, and we all people do
buttering
shitty
me
things.
up, baby.
And I love that he had a different mask on that kind of recalled back to Little Michael when he kills his babysitter. It's a clown, not a scarecrow, but it's definitely got that point. I love that. And I was like, oh, is this going to be his costume? And when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's going to be, I mean, it is kind of creepy because it's a different mask, but maybe this is like his moniker and how he wants to present himself. And I was like, that's cool, because he did have a pretty cool kill. And then ultimately he does take Michael's mask at some point, which I did think that tussle was pretty cool. Just that far away shot I thought was great. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when there's a love interest or a boyfriend or date to Allison's character. I forget his name. He's a cop.
Yeah.
You don't like him to begin with. Yeah. You're just like, oh, dating a cop. Why? Like, I get, and honestly, I get why she did it, because it's the exact opposite of who her boyfriend was. And he's like cops are supposed to be good and like protect. And, he's just kind of like a slimy dude. But I love that scene where he's in the sewer looking and Michael's just like standing, and you're just like, it's like a really nice jump scare. And I love that kill and like the shaking of, like you mentioned earlier. I loved it. I thought the gags, the stunts, I thought, I feel like most of it's practical for maybe if there is CG, I couldn't tell, maybe the blowtorch scene, but it's all seamless. David Gordon Green knows how to use CG if he's using it to great effect, or he's going to do everything practical on screen, because I feel like he kind of grew up with the same movies we did. I'm sure we're all right around the same age.
Yeah, I wondered about that actually, and my best guess would be is probably like a silicone mold
that's
of
what
a
I was
face
thinking
that
too.
they just let it melt, because
it
seemed very tangible on screen, or really good CG. It was blurry, but whatever.
Yeah.
Let's
and I
not
love
forget
the pumpkin opening.
Oh, that was great.
Oh, they like
that was great.
Yeah, so good.
That was sick. But let's not forget to mention the very first death in the movie, when Jeremy falls from the top of the stairwell.
Oh my God, that effect is so good. Dude,
Just
the way
the sound design,
hits,
this sound. See, and I'm not reveling in an actual child. It's like, I don't know why I need to go there, but I feel like people think I'm sick because I like this stuff. But it's so good. It was so well done. DGG, he dropped that kid off that railing with such masterful skill that
as soon as Corey goes, let me out of here, and starts freaking out, I was like, he's going to open that door and that kid is going to fall over that railing. I knew it. And then like they make a point of showing you how high up this house is. And like throughout that first scene, you're like, dude, like, because the whole time when you're watching that scene, which is masterfully done, is like, oh, this house is huge. Michael could be anywhere, because you just expect Michael to be there, not this little kid playing a pretty cruel trick on his babysitter because he doesn't like him, or maybe he's not even a cruel kid. He's just trying to have some fun and scare, because it's a spooky season, right? Oh man, it was so good. And I love the way the head throws back. It just, you're like, oh my God, that kid's dead. the kid's dead.
It
And
was
his parents
just
walk in. Oh,
right
dude. I
then
wonder how many
so good.
I wonder how many takes it took to like get that head snap the way you wanted it and
Ah,
stuff.
yeah, it
Dude,
was
so
quite
good.
quite well done. Shoot, man, what a blast! I'm happy to hear your remarks on this. I didn't just from the how divisive everything has been on the internet. I haven't really dove into any of the comments or criticisms on this film. I wanted to go in somewhat fresh, and so it's nice to know that you also have the same sense, I think, of quality and satisfaction that we look for in a horror movie of this type. Maybe some confusing ends that, or maybe, I guess, I don't know. I don't really know what the criticisms are, but I don't get it. I loved this movie and I've enjoyed this entire trilogy through and through. I think it's given me so many moments where I'm at the edge of my seat and I'm giddy about, a man in a mask slaughtering people in this town, and I could take easily many more of these sequels from this team. I feel like they could do whatever the hell they want, even though this one's ends. Next one's gonna be starts over. I don't know. Halloween comes early or something. I don't know. That's stupid. Please don't do that. But yeah, I loved it. I don't know what the haters are saying. Maybe it's just that nostalgia kind of capsule they're trying to unlock with every viewing of a new sequel or something. Sequels are tough to work your way around, but I think this team has really done a great job of keeping this franchise alive and keeping it interesting.
I agree. I get why people don't like it. It's after Kills, like I feel like people didn't like Kills as much either, and I don't really get. I mean, a lot of people said that there's no real story and you're just kind of following stuff, and I get what they're saying, but I I don't I just don't understand why you can't just watch a movie and just like let stuff happen. I don't understand why there has to be a beginning, middle, and end. Really, um, to me, I always reference Black Hawk Down because that movie's chaos, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but that's how those events went down. There was no planning, and that's what I like about his movie. The like Kills in particular is these events are happening and people are just trying to survive any way they can. There's mass hysteria. Like there is no beginning, middle, or end to huge
Evil.
tragedies. Yeah, like to huge tragedies. No one like started the day and was like, here's let's set up some devices. Okay, this is the midpoint. This is the finale. Like stuff just fucking happens and you have to deal with it.
Right.
And that's what I like about Kills. And going into Ends, I think it was a great full circle going back to the original film. And there's a really great article. I'm gonna look it up real quick, people. From Bloody
Pause.
Disgusting. It's called Infectious Evil and some other words. And it's by Nate Brimmer. Look it up. He really goes into depth. He's pretty knowledgeable about how they paid homage to a lot of the films that they said they weren't going to like reference, but
Mm-hmm.
pulled from. Especially with like Michael kind of like awakening an evil in someone and kind of putting a little of the supernatural into it, which I do like
Yeah.
because I do think if you have something that's pure evil, you do get to play around with like otherworldly things maybe happening. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it was good. I don't think it was great, but I did watch it again, and I'll probably watch it several more times. And I think I'll learn to love it more. And I think it's something that people, I've kind of had this. I like when you watch something, and when you watch something initially, I think you have all these ideas of how you want it to end and what you think would happen. And I definitely do that. Someone who watches a lot of film and
Mm-hmm.
has tried writing his own script and is just kind of is a creative person. Like anytime a movie ends, it's like, oh well, this is what I would do in a sequel. The way this ends is what I would do, and I'd call back from this film and blah blah. Your brain just gets
Mm-hmm.
moving. And I don't. I think a lot of people wanted a different movie. And like I said at the beginning, and my hot take is, I love that this team decided to take bold swings throughout this trilogy. I feel like Halloween 2018 was great, but it was pretty safe for the most part. It was a little more brutal, but it's, beginning, middle, end. We knew we were getting two more. And I feel with like Kills and to Ends was like, they're like, here's what we're going to do differently. And this is why it's a David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, Blumhouse
Mm-hmm.
production. And
Yeah.
I love that about it. I love they took a big swing. And I hope that people in years to come revisit this movie and find and love all the stuff that we loved about it. And yes, I do have minor complaints. Do I wish maybe they would have combined Kills and Ends to make a more cohesive story, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
have the town this mass hysteria and the town maybe kill Michael? That's great. but it's never been about like really about Haddonfield. It's always been a Laurie and Michael story. She's the
Right.
only one that survives. She's the one that's got to kill him. She says it in two, and
Yeah.
kills. And that's what they gave us. They gave us that intimate final fight that's really reminiscent of the first fight. She even picks up the knitting needle, and it gets turned and reversed on her, which I thought was great because I was like, oh, she's gonna
Yeah.
stab him. I was like, he ain't gonna fall for it. He members, and
Oh.
he did. And then he stabs her in the ear, and we were like, ah.
Ouch.
And so I would say in my closing remarks, if something in you is nagging at you to rewatch this movie, even if you didn't like it, I would rewatch it again. I definitely found things I like. And I'm also wondering if David Gordon Green and team have an extended version. I read another review that of the novelization that maybe some stuff was left out and the novelization kind of clear like makes it more full. And having watched the extended version of Kills, I did enjoy that extended version a little more. They get into some other things in that.
Okay.
It's not like big things, but enough to just kind of make it a little neater, a little nicer. And I wonder if they have something similar planned for ends, because I feel like there's a lot going on that might got left on the cutting room floor. If not, I would still recommend watching it again.
I thought it was great.
Yeah,
What? I don't get it,
didn't see it
people.
coming.
Maybe I'm stupid,
I mean, maybe I am too, but
but I enjoy that. It felt like a movie to me. It felt like a freaking cinema, being at the cinema. So, anyway, thanks again for joining us for another review. If you'd like to get in touch with us on any of our socials, hit the links below. We're on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as on, that's about it, I think. But yeah, just hit us up in the comments if you want us to check out something that we're not looking at currently. Any movies that you want us to review, please let us know. Oh, also go to the Synced Movie Club on Facebook. Join up there and join in extended discussions with us. At some point when we blow up, I'm going to make that a pay service. So get in now while it's free.
yeah.
And yeah, have fun with us while we talk about movies because we love it.
Oh,
That
no.
is Halloween Ends.
Saint